Hey everyone, it's Miss Mac here with another short video. This is our Polynomials Lesson 1 on adding and subtracting polynomials. We just have one learning target for today that we can add and subtract two polynomial expressions. So before we go any further, we need to know this first key point, which is that a polynomial is an expression with two or more terms. And the word poly is actually a Greek prefix that means many. So a polynomial is an expression with many just meaning more than one term. So we have these two examples here. This first one is not a polynomial. And we actually call something that has only one term a monomial. Because the prefix mono actually means one. And this example over here on the right, this is a polynomial because it has more than one term. And actually, our example from the previous slide is a specific type of polynomial called a binomial. So the example that we have in this first column is not a polynomial. That is a monomial, something with an expression with one term. But everything down here, these three examples, these are all polynomials because they all have more than one term. But some types of polynomials, we give specific names. So for example, here we have a binomial, and this is something that has, or an expression that has two terms. And we can remember this because the prefix bi means two, and we know that from other words in English and in other languages that use that prefix. So for example, a bicycle has two wheels, and someone who speaks two languages is bilingual. We also call an expression with three terms a trinomial, and we can remember this because a trinomial has three terms, just like a triangle, or just like a tricycle has three wheels. And then anything over three terms, we automatically just call a polynomial. So we don't give it any other more specific name other than it's just a polynomial. Okay, so when we are adding and subtracting polynomials, just like we've been practicing with variables this entire year, we can only add or subtract like terms. So that isn't anything new. That's something that we've known for a while. But in adding and subtracting these new types of polynomials that we haven't worked with before, two really important things are that we need to keep in mind. So the first is that like terms have the same variable. That part isn't new. The new part that we haven't worked with yet is that like terms also have the same degree of exponent. Okay, so that means that x and x squared are not like terms. Because although they are the same variable, they don't have the same exponent. So in order for us to have like terms with polynomials, they need to have the same variable and the same exponent. So really quickly, here are some steps for adding or subtracting polynomials. Then we'll go through some examples together. So when we're adding polynomials, we're first going to identify our like terms. Then we will stack our like terms on top of each other. We will add or subtract. In our first example, we will be adding, and then we will double check all of our negative signs. That will be a really important step before we find our final sum or difference. All right, so let's go ahead and add these two expressions together. In the first parentheses, I have 2x squared minus 7x plus 6. and I'm adding that to negative 3x squared plus 7x. So step one is I want to identify my like terms. That means things that have the same variable and that variable is raised to the same exponent. So I notice that right here I have 2x squared and negative 3x squared. Those are like terms. I also notice that I have negative 7x and positive 7x, and those are also like terms because they have x to the first power. We just have an invisible 1 as our exponent there. And then finally, we have positive 6, and positive 6 actually doesn't have a like term, so it's just going to be on its own. So we did step 1. Step 2, we're going to stack our terms on top of each other. So let's go, our like terms on top of each other. So let's go ahead and do that. We have 2x squared minus 7x plus 6. So right below this, I'm going to stack negative 3x squared and positive 7x. And then again, positive 6 doesn't have a like term. So we stacked our like terms on top of each other. Now we're ready to add because the problem says add. So I'm going to make this like a big addition problem. And I'm going to add together my like terms. Now, when we have been adding variable terms all year, we know that we don't do anything to our variable, but we add the coefficients that are in front of them. So I have 2 plus negative 3, which is negative 1x squared. Then I have negative 7x plus positive 7x, which is actually 0. And since positive 6 didn't have a like term, I just have positive 6. Let's go ahead and rewrite this in a way that we would more traditionally see it. So if we have a 1 here in front of x squared, we don't actually really need to write that. So let's write negative x squared. We also know that we don't ever have to write plus 0 because anything plus 0 is just itself. So I won't write plus 0 and I'll just write positive 6. So here is my final sum. And my final answer actually turned out to be a polynomial called a binomial. It has 2 terms. All right, let's do one more quick example where this time we need to subtract. So I'm going to identify first my like terms. 3x squared is like terms with 1x squared in the other parentheses. Negative 5x squared is like terms with negative 1x squared. I have an invisible negative 1 right there. And I have negative 2, which is like terms with positive 1. All right, so we did step number 1. Now let's go ahead and do step number 2. We're going to stack our like terms on top of each other. So we have 3x squared minus 5x minus 2. And we have x squared right underneath its like term. We have negative 1x, and we have positive 1. And we are subtracting. So we need to remember that for each of these terms, we will subtract. All right, so let's start off with our x squared terms. We know there's an invisible 1 right here. So we have 3 minus 1, which is 2x squared. Next, we have negative 5x minus negative 1. So when I have 2 negative signs together, that actually becomes addition. So I have negative 5x plus 1x, which is negative 4x. Then I have negative 2 minus 1, which is going to give me a larger negative number that is negative 3. So my final difference is 2x squared minus 4x minus 3. That's also a polynomial. It's called a trinomial. All right, everyone. I hope that was helpful. If you still have questions, go ahead and watch that video one more time. And if you're still stuck after that, send Miss Mac an email. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button. And of course, if you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now. Thanks for watching.